To break down the almost perfectly finalized numbers from this massive contract, what we're calling a renegotiation. For those of you watching on YouTube, thank you. Please hit that subscribe button. We will be doing plenty more of these, looking backwards on some of the NFL offseason that was. There's plenty more extensions coming down the pipeline. I don't think any bigger than this one. This is the kind of every 5 years or so, we get a taste of just how important Patrick Mahomes is to the Chiefs and to the league, respectively, despite the fact that he's coming off a nasty injury. And look, simplified version of statistically, not exactly at the top of the mountain quarterback right now, though pretty damn good still. Let's look at these numbers. The first thing you're going to notice, if you're watching along here or if you've seen the contract on Spotrac.com yet, is that there's some things missing, okay? There's going to be quite a lot of banter between how this contract is framed, discussed, archived, and certainly for ranking purposes and marketability purposes, discussed outwardly. So we've already had agents get into the ESPN executives and such saying, look, this one's weird, okay? Nothing's happening this year. It's going to start next year. And if we start next year and go the next 7 years, it's going to be $64 million a year. Also, there were 6 years left on his old contract. We're adding 2 to that. So now it's an 8-year contract. So if we're talking new money, new years, like we almost always do in terms of NFL extensions, that 2 years is another $240 million, which is another $120 million per year. Well, guess what? Nobody in their right mind is going to put Patrick Mahomes on the books at $120 million per year as an AAV. Okay. Though the dichotomy of having him be exactly double Dak Prescott for Dallas Cowboys purposes would be pretty good clickbait. We're not going there. In fact, we're not even going to the $64 million. All right. As we did with Josh Allen and the Bills, who were pretty upfront about what was happening here. Okay. It was a very similar situation. It's a market correction. All right. And it's about bringing cash forward. We're going to add some years on because teams love term, teams love control. And it's going to look big and grandiose. So despite the fact that there was plenty remaining on the previous contract, and generally speaking, NFL contract extensions are new money, new years. We're starting over. We did it with Josh Allen. We're doing it with Patrick Mahomes. We're ripping up the last 6 years and I think 265 that existed. And we're starting this thing from ground zero. So what you're looking at right now on Spotrac.com is a brand new 8-year, $504.75 million contract. That's the full base value. Starting this year, not next year, starting this year and running through the 2033 season. There's no signing bonus. Why? Well, because it's June and the Chiefs needed a lot of things to happen over the course of the past 3 to 4 months in order to get cap compliant and or sign players and or acquire players via trade. So they've already done the work on Patrick Mahomes to convert his massive salary into a signing bonus. That's part of what you're seeing with the restructure proration column here. They've done it a bunch of times in the past, and this past time, that's stemming from that proration right there. So if we flip this to cash quickly, that's already the signing bonus based on the conversion from March that was done for cap purposes. That was on the previous contract. Obviously, that kind of stuff transfers over to the new contract. In fact, everything you see in the 2026 line here, 1.3 million base salary, that's the league minimum, the restructure signing bonus for the salary conversion, and the $1 million workout bonus, that all existed on the previous contract. We're just bringing it over. So you can understand to a certain degree why the agents are pushing that this thing actually starts in 2027. Well, this isn't a hockey contract or a baseball contract. So it starts today, all right? Because nobody wants us to go out there and say that Patrick Mahomes is still a $45 million per year player. I guarantee that. Okay. So we're not going to give in on the 64 million, but we are going to go with the 63.09 million, which is the mathematics on the 8-year 504.75 that we're starting from scratch with. So nothing changed in 2026. He's making a league high $56.75 million cash. That's number one right now. And that was already baked into the cake. Now we start in 2027. Okay. We'll go back to the cap breakdown and we'll do a little work on this. If this were the Eagles or the Browns or the Bills or the 49ers or many other teams, what you'd be seeing is a pile of numbers here and tons of void years here. I'm not telling you the Chiefs won't get to that point. They just don't do it in the onset. Okay, so where the Eagles, for instance, will build in 4 to 5 to 6 option bonuses out of the gate, or in Myles Garrett with the Rams case, 8 option bonuses, all right out of the in the onset, which then in turn leads to instant proration of those bonuses over 5 years, which leads to much, much lower cap hits from the onset. The Chiefs play the waiting game. It's sizable base salaries. It's sizable roster bonuses in March. In this case, it's actually May 5th for these roster bonuses. And then they go year to year. So while you're sitting here looking at this saying, how in the hell are the Chiefs going to handle a 90 and change cap hit next year? Of course they're not going to, okay? Because they're going to be able to take this 27 million or this 30 million or all of it, okay, down to the minimum 1.35 million and convert it into that next signing bonus, which would then prorate over 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the 90 million here becomes 40 million, okay, to a certain degree. They'll do the same thing here. They'll do the same thing here, and they'll be flexible with it. So where some of those teams that do it at the onset have to sort of do the math all up front and try to understand what those option bonuses could be from a budgetary standpoint, or full on minimum salaries, full option bonuses. The Chiefs give themselves a bit of flexibility. All right. So some years they're only going to maneuver a conversion on this. Some years it'll be this and this. Some years it'll be half of this and this. And some years, maybe the cap rises so much that by the time we get here, they're just going to take on an $83 million cap hit. Who knows? Okay. I wouldn't imagine that happens next year by any regard, because what you're looking at here is an estimated 28% of their cap to one player. But we're getting closer to those kind of numbers being tolerable. I just wouldn't assume it just yet. So that's the way this looks. So don't get freaked out by these numbers, because, and by the way, it doesn't mean that Brett Veach is a worse GM than Howie Roseman or Les Snead or any of these other option bonus heavy GMs. It just means they operate differently. They're going to go the same route at the end of the game. And there are some semantical differences between a signing bonus and an option bonus. None of them really apply here, but the Chiefs just like to be able to have the ability to be flexible versus, and the Eagles can still do some things, but bake it into the cake makes it difficult. And you saw that specifically with AJ Brown. All right. You saw that specifically with Myles Garrett in Cleveland, who, we made fun of it, but pushing back those option bonus exercise dates allowed them to wait until June 1st, which in turn allowed them to make all the dead cap work in their favor. Same with AJ Brown. Those are the kind of moves that have to be made when you aggressively build in bonus conversions up front. The Chiefs give themselves a bit of it out. Okay, so they can move some of their bigger contracts a little bit easier because of this structure. All right, because things will transfer that have not yet been prorated. It sinks them with extremely high cap hits, especially when you turn the page to February. But they just do their work every February and March to get themselves compliant and figure out how much space they're going to need. So again, don't freak out here. This is a pretty standard contract for the Chiefs, despite the unbelievable numbers you're seeing up here. Let's get to some of those numbers. I mentioned the AAV. It's pretty fixed. Okay. I mean, this cash flow is pretty consistent, as you can see here. Small rises basically every single year, pretty standard stuff. We'll get to some of the likelihoods in a second here. As from a guarantee standpoint, this is new. If we flip down to his previous contract, that rookie extension, remember, there were still ample rookie contract left when he signed that first extension, right? There was a 4th year plus the 5th year option. So Mahomes gave the Chiefs a bit of a hometown arbitration discount to bring back an MLB term. All right. So you can see there's a lot of team friendliness happening here up front before the real meat and potatoes of this contract kicked in. And it got to a point pretty quickly, okay, like 2025 quickly, where some of that money had to come forward. So you knew, if I flip over to cash here, you can see the line of demarcation here where there was some pot sweetening done here. That's a pretty sizable jump in pay, $30 million. Things dropped back down to earth a little bit here. And we all thought that we were going to get through 2026 as it currently stands. And then we'd start to hear some chatter about the Chiefs doing something, because obviously by 2028, when this contract falls off a cliff, this was going to be a point of no return on this current deal. Well, they're early. And in many instances, it's better to be earlier than late, as the Dallas Cowboys know very well, or maybe they don't know, but we know. So they've jumped ahead here, and really they haven't too much, because this 2026 salary, as I mentioned, has remained completely intact here for the upcoming season before things start to get fun. It's $150 million fully guaranteed. It's not all immediately at signing. Like I said, that $54 million signing bonus from the conversion was already baked into the cake. By the end of this week, so let's say that this contract was officially signed Monday. I don't yet have that firm transactional date. By today, most likely by Friday, end of business today, $150 million has been locked in, which is all of 2026, all of 2027, and $35.5 million of 2028. That's all baked in up front. That's a little bit different than this previous contract. This is also not a rookie extension. Okay, this is a veteran extension. He's been through the rigmarole a little bit here. We know what the other contracts look like at this position, and even at some of the other positions, right? The Micah Parsons deal and things like that. The Myles Garrett deal, obviously. The going rate right now for a top player in this game is 3 years fully guaranteed at signing, and then we talk. That's what Mahomes just got. That's where we're at right now. That's the 150. It's a huge number. It's the second highest guarantee at signing to only Deshaun Watson. You can count that if you want. Okay. So if we throw that one out the window as a unicorn, this is pretty much top of the marks across the board in every metric you want it to be, including this number, which is the practical guarantee of $397 million. And it's actually more than that if you want to really get down into the nitty gritty, down the rabbit hole. But I'll show you how this works here. I mentioned high base salaries, consistent roster bonuses, and consistent workout bonuses throughout here. If you just start to read this quickly, what's happening is basically every single March, okay, so we're locked in through 2027. Every single March, we're getting the full balance of a salary locked in, okay, plus this $30 million roster bonus for next year. So this becomes that early vesting guarantee mechanism every single year right through 2032. All right. You can see here on this last line. What we don't get is we don't get the 2033 compensation until 2033. All right. All of that is March 2033. So everything from 2026 through 2032 has an early trigger on it. That's the practical guarantee on this, which, if you put it all together, is actually $434 million. The reason we've dropped it to here is, again, just that $30 million bonus is actually the early trigger. That's enough to, I think, account for the full season. And by the way, will we still be in this contract in 2032? Hell no. Okay. We all know better than that. But I'm just telling you, as it is, from A to Z, up and down, 2026 to 2032, for practical purposes, is in a really good spot here. It's an unbelievably strong contract. It's an unbelievably strong cash payroll. And correspondingly, it's an unbelievably high cap hit payroll, right? They'll deal with that. And you'll see void years and you'll see things push out. but it's aggressive. These are extremely aggressive numbers. The actual year-to-year cash flow cumulatively is historic. That number right there, 237.25 across the next 4 years, is the highest in NFL history. I believe these two are second to Dak Prescott, who, again, leveraged himself into a pretty nice contract. But that's number one in the league right now. That's number one all-time right now. That's number one all-time right now on a 5-year span based on our data. And I'm going to call it right now. That's probably where things stop for this contract. All right. If I had to put a line in, I'm not going to put the potential outline because, again, early guarantee, half early guarantee, practical guarantee all the way through. But I think reasonably, if Mahomes is still Mahomesing at age 35, let's call it 1, 2, 3, 4, a 5-year contract. And then as he heads towards his age 36 season, which, Stafford was still playing at a high level. Rodgers was still playing at a high level. It's absolutely conceivable that we're not doing year to years at that point, that we're starting back over with a 4-year extension to rip up these last 3. That's probably about right. So let's make this, for all intents, a 5 for just over 300. All right. So a little over 60 million on that 5-year APY. And there's ways to get more. This is pretty standard for him. If he wins the Super Bowl, he gets an extra 1.25 million. If he's the MVP and they get to the championship game, the AFC championship game, he gets another 1.25 million. That's all in reach, as you darn well know. That's it. My expectation, once I see the full contract, I don't have the detail on this yet, but it existed here. So why wouldn't it exist there? My expectation is there'll be a full no trade clause as well, so that Mahomes has a little bit more control over his future, especially as he gets into his 30s. But as far as blockbuster contracts go, the semantics are few and far between, and the numbers are just huge. It's exactly what you would expect for this type of player who is kind of a no BS, shows up, plays hard, tries to play through injury, is versatile, will be back in due time here in 2026. And has been properly compensated. Maybe a year before we thought, but I don't think anybody's saying there's no way this should have happened. And if you are, you're not putting the whole picture together. You're just not. This is the guy you want for the next 6 years. There's no question in anybody's mind. And the Chiefs, like I said, are getting ahead of it. And in terms of NFL contracts, especially with ones this size, it's better to get it done early than late. So I applaud that. And I actually applaud this structure too. This is kind of a dying art. They're not listening to the Twitter sphere. Okay. They know that they're getting killed right now because of a $90 million cap hit next year. But anybody who knows it, darn, and hopefully we're all learning together here. Anybody who knows it, darn, knows that the flexibility built within this contract is extremely large, and the Chiefs will take care of business as needed versus trying to take all that cap space right now up front and then sitting there with a pile and not knowing exactly what to do with it all because they've rushed a little bit into their conversion process. I like this structure. I like the flexibility it provides. And for Patrick Mahomes, I like a $397 million practical guarantee with predictably $301 million over the next 5 seasons in Kansas City. That's your contract breakdown for Patrick Mahomes. We will do plenty more of these both at Spotrac.com and here on the YouTube channel. But thanks for listening. We'll be back soon.